Some people will love your book, right? Other people would be like, meh. And other people like, I can't stand it. You have to be ready to,
For all of
to
it.
with all of the above. It's not fun, but the only way through is through. Stay focused on who you're here to serve.
Welcome to a Listen to Learn episode of the Share Life podcast. I'm Jason Scott Montoya, and today I'm speaking with Denise Renee. Denise Renee, say hello.
Hey.
Denise Renee is an author and a business book writing coach. She works with professionals, entrepreneurs, content creators, spiritual leaders, and religious lay people to help them finish building their authority books, finishing their book that they've started. And she's got a guide, 4 steps to write your book. We'll include a link to that in the description if you're interested in it. To get us started, tell us, what is it that holds people back from writing a book? Even though so many people seem like they want to or say that they want to, what is it that's holding them back?
How much time you got?
Let's start with reason number 1 of 500.
I know, right? Um, honestly, the biggest thing that I find that holds people back from writing a book is fear.
Hmm.
And there are a number of fears that, since I've been helping people very specifically with writing their books since 2018, there's a number of fears that I hear people tell me a lot, and I actually wrote a book about it. It's
A
called
recently published book.
It is recently in pre-launch. I'm I'm still finishing up my last bit of edits and getting ready to record the audiobook and all that. But I'm definitely at a point where I'm at the pre-launch. So when people get
Yeah.
the pre-launch, they get the first couple of chapters as a digital
Yeah.
download
So,
and audiobook. So, but
and
it's
what's the name and subtitle of that book in
so
case people are interested?
it is called Write Your Book. That's the title. And the subtitle is 10 Mindset Hacks to Move You from Fear to Finished. Because
Mm,
ultimately, people are holding themselves back. And I will be honest, I don't write this book as a preachy, I'm the
yeah.
know it all writer. I myself, it's taken me 6 years to get mine done. Why? Because of fear. And even though I've been a professional writer, I've been paid to write and edit since 1999. I've
Mhm.
loved writing since I was about 8, 9 years old. Um, I started writing short stories in junior high school. I was writing poems in high school. I was writing music in college. And, it's just been a love and it's just been something that's carried me through. I fell into copywriting. Writing is not necessarily my particular issue, but there's something about becoming an author. There's something about that, you know, crossing those burning sands, so to speak, really freaks people out. A lot of times people feel like, well, I don't feel like I'm enough of an expert to be an author because, I work with business people
Mm,
primarily. They may feel, well, I may not have the great writing skills to be an author. I may not, I may not have been in business long enough to be an author. I may be too old. I may be too young. I may be too this or too that. And so we're telling ourselves all of these different things and holding ourselves back. Meanwhile, and I think there's also a perception of, especially now with social media, it's like if you are not the New York Times bestseller, if you don't make a post and it goes viral, and explodes in book sales, it somehow equates to you've failed. And that's
mm,
not the case. The thing
yeah.
is that every book is not for everybody, right? And that is the thing that I hammer home all the time. Your book is not for everybody. If it's for everybody, it's for nobody. There's a specific audience that is intended for your book. You're sharing something, especially as business owners, we're sharing some kind of solution, we're sharing some kind of methodology, we're sharing some kind of encouraging success story. Hey, I did this, so you can do it too. Or I helped these clients do this, so you can do it too. So there's a specific audience for that. And as long as you're reaching that handful of people who fit into that bucket, and handful, right? It could be thousands of people, right? Um,
Yeah.
and it also goes to, what are your goals for your book? Are you looking to get more clients from your book? So if your you're looking to help, um, let's say you are a coach for local handymen, handy women, handy people. I don't know what the nomenclature term is, but if you are, you train or you coach other handy people to grow their local business. Well, your book is not going to apply to electricians, right? It's
Yeah.
going to apply to other handy people. So that's your target audience. And where do handy people hang out at? Maybe there's a statewide association for, licensing board or something like that. So you go to those places where those people are, you market your book, and you share how you help people grow their local businesses. Whatever your
Hmm.
methodologies or tactics are, and that's it. And so you're making sales on the book, you're introducing yourself, who you are and what you do, and then now you're getting client leads and clients coming into your business who are going to pay you more. So it's not just about the sale of the book, but it's also about the opportunities that come on the back end, whether you are looking to get the clients and our handy person example, or maybe if you're a spiritual leader, maybe you are not necessarily looking to quote unquote, make money, get rich, but not that there's anything wrong with money because you need money for the mission, right? Whatever the mission
Hmm.
is, you need money for it, right? So maybe you're looking to enroll people into a particular idea, um, and you're looking to spread your message. Still, your message is for a specific group of people, and it's for a specific group of people who are going to hear it from you, because
Yeah.
it's also who you are, your life experiences, the way that you frame things, your perspective. There's people who are going to gravitate to you because of who you are. Um,
Yeah.
it's just like you have 159,000 different diet books on the market, but people gravitate towards a particular methodology, and they'll gravitate towards a particular personality at whoever that author is.
Yeah.
So all of those things make up success when it comes to writing a book. So you really have to look at success differently. Um, Forget about going viral, quote unquote. Forget about trying to appeal to everybody. But if you are reaching the right audience that you're looking to reach with your book, and you're getting the results that you want, the new clients, the opportunities for media, placements or things like that, then that's success to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's tease out some layers there. So you mentioned you're on the tail end of writing your book,
Mhm.
and you talked about the fear that people have. So what was it for you? Like what were some of your fear points? And then how did you face them and overcome
Well, Dr. Montoya,
them?
he's like a cousin. Honestly, a house of cards of my own doing. I was thinking about things like, wow. Well, first, when I first wrote the first draft of the book was back in 2019. And at that time, I was positioning myself as a ghostwriter. So I was thinking
Mm,
about using a book. I was like, okay, well, I'm over here helping everybody else with the book. I need one for my own business, that for my own validation and credit and
yeah.
credibility. And I came up with this idea because like I said, I just keep having conversations over and over and over. And people will say, yeah, I want to write a book, but right? And fill in the blank. And so there were just these 10 things that I just kept
Mm,
hearing over and over that I wanted to address. So I wrote the first draft of the book. Okay, no problem. And then I sat back and was like, well, how is this supposed to give me ghostwriting clients? And
mm,
I was like, well, that's not really going to lead to ghostwriting clients because as a ghostwriter, I'm writing the book for you. I'm not helping
yeah.
your book.
You're facing their fear for them as a ghostwriter, right?
Right. So
Yeah.
to me, it was just like I started talking myself out of it. So then I was like,
Mm,
well, maybe you need to write a methodology book, which would
yeah.
explain what's my process for ghostwriting and things like that. So people would be comfortable. So I started writing that. So I abandoned this book. I started
Mhm.
writing that one in 2020. And I don't know, it was, it just wasn't hitting. And I was just like, "Ugh." And also at the same time, I was, had come to like a crossroads in my business and in life. and was rethinking life. I mean, it was 2020. Um,
Yeah. And if you're interested in learning more about that, Denise Renee has been on the podcast twice. So
ah,
you can go back and hear her story. And also, we talked about the pandemic and some of the societal political issues that were surfacing at the time and racial reconciliation. So if you're interested, we'll put links to those in the description. But yeah, continue on. Go on with for us.
yeah. So I was, rethinking life and rethinking my business, rethinking if I wanted to do it, um, if I wanted to do it, how I wanted to do it, and everything. So I put everything on pause. And I finally figured out what I wanted to do. So I am no longer doing ghostwriting, but I was like, I do like helping people. And I do like, teaching. So I was like, okay, let's pivot this into a coaching. So where I can walk you through, of course, I can still edit. And I'm like, okay, editing is not like my big passion, but I can definitely lend my skills to people. And like, okay, I would rather focus on the developmental editing side, do some light copy editing. Proofreading is not my ministry. Um, like I don't want to do that, but definitely helping people really understand the words on the page. And one of the things that editing clients have a problem separating sometimes is that what they have to separate their emotions from the words that are on the page. I know when you wrote this, you intended this, but the words on the page are telling you something different, and that is it's something that's very difficult for people to grasp. But nevertheless, I have the patience, so I just walk through the fire with them. But yeah, so I decided what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it, and I thought to myself, if this was like in the middle, about right about this time last year, I was like, you know what? What if if I had put that book out then? It wound up. I went back to the manuscript and I was like, this book is perfect for what I'm doing now.
Oh, you were ahead of your
I
time.
was ahead of myself, and I was just like, doink. Girl, I
Oh,
do that to myself a lot, and I really had to sit back and reflect. I'm like, a lot of times you were doing something and you felt frustrated, and then you quit, like maybe right at the brink of a breakthrough. And I'm like, man, I'm always ahead of my time. Something's on my mind to do, and I was just ahead of my time. So, all right, girlfriend, hey, whip it out. Let's dust it off, and let's get back in the fight here. And yeah, so I've been, I started creating content again. I started, just on that journey and started teasing the fact that I had a book, even though I wasn't doing anything over there. I was like, yeah, I got a book. You're like, well, what's the book about? That kind of helped, and I did that on purpose because I was like, I need people asking me about where is your book, because
yeah,
otherwise
yeah.
I'll just sit back and forth, right? So the public scrutiny is not that it's scrutiny, but I mean the
Yeah.
public like, hey, where's your book? Hey, where's your book? Hey, where's and I was like, all right, you know what? Let's get this together. And I was like, you know what? Let me do a pre-launch, and that gives me a reason to talk about the book,
Mhm.
um, and start selling. And then the fact that money is rolling in, I can't, I can't slow down.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't slow down. I have
It's fuel to the fire that keeps the fire going.
this is my strategy. It's keeping me moving, because if I continue, this is just me and a function of my personality. For some dumb reason, when it comes to things for myself, I'm like, "Mm." But when I feel like I'm responsible to people, I'm like, I show up and I'm like,
Yeah.
girl, you need to show up for yourself like that. Meanwhile, while you're working that out, we'll just, use,
Yeah.
let me just lean into my personality and work with it. So,
Yeah.
so
Well,
yeah,
I think getting once you get paid for things, even if it's a little bit
yes,
of money, I think it does start to do that. It
yes.
starts to make it where you can then do things for you. Yeah. Because it's self-sustaining, right? Because you have to make an income to support yourself. So, and your family. So there's a couple layers here that I think is very interesting that's worth teasing out.
I like
Um,
layers.
the way you're talking about writing a book is really about a transformative experience for the author, which I
Yes.
think is really powerful.
Mhm.
It's not just you just getting words on a page to then put it out there. What you're talking about is you're going to become a different person at the end of this process. I'm going to help you do that.
It's gonna
And
transform your business too.
yeah, and then transformation has a compounding or a domino effect. And I can relate to that, particularly for the current book I'm working on, From the Garden to the Cross. Like, you don't write a book about Jesus's passion experience without being changed. And that's actually been a slow, a giant speed bump, is because it's just deep, dark stuff at times to work through. And so that's a really interesting idea of like the book as a vehicle for transformation. And I think it's really interesting too how that ties into like what you said earlier about the fears in terms of like what people are going to think or how they're going to perceive things. And one of the things that I've come to discover is that like the path to success is through the valley of humiliation. So talk to me about that.
Jason, why are you trying to make me cry off my eyeliner?
Because I want to wear it. Oh, yeah, I need a little over here.
Um, yeah, no, there is no even when writing a book, your idea baby.
Mm.
Um, and those of us who have had the blessing to be able to incubate a human life in their body and give birth. Even though I call mine kind of cheating a little bit. Like when uh, it was time. I was in so much pain. I was screaming, hollering, and the doctors they decided to do a C-section because my heart rate was going up, the baby's heart
Mm.
rate was going down.
Got to get this baby out of here.
We were like, nah. And I remember the doc. Normally with a C-section, you're in local anesthesia, honey. I was screaming so much they were like, "Mm-mm, knock her all the way out, okay? But under, I don't want to hear her." So I went went to sleep screaming and hollering, and I woke up, and my husband at the time was like, "Here, it's our baby," and I was like, "Oh." But nonetheless, whether you get a C-section, whether you get a surrogate, a midwife, whatever, when you birth something, it changes you. There's no escaping it. Um, so it's like the process of giving life to something, the process of giving life to our ideas. Um, it's going to change you, and you have to nurture it as well. And that's the other thing that I think is so a disadvantage of our culture, where it's like if it's not an instant success, if it's not instantly viral, we feel like it's failed, but like, no, just like a child, you got to grow that baby up. You have to
Mhm.
nurture it. You have to keep, putting it in front of the
Yeah.
right audiences and let it grow. And as you grow an audience around that, sometimes your audience will give you hints as to what, they want a sibling.
Yeah.
Right? They want a sibling and they're going to tell you what it is that they'd like to hear from you next. So yeah, there is no it's definitely a growth process. And while I can appreciate using tools like AI, I'm not an advocate for AI generated books because you're basically plagiarizing off of everything else that's already been done. But I'm all for AI assisted. So I'm helping people who want to pull from their own ideas, who pull from their own experiences, who pull from their own emotional everything to create their books. Um, and even if your experience seems similar to someone else, that you're still a unique person and you still have a unique perspective. And again, there's going to be an audience of people who will only respond to your voice and to the way that you present it. Somebody may have told you, you need to eat less and move more 50 million times, but you're the 50 millionth and one person, and the way that you said it or something, whatever, it clicks for them. That's what it's all about. So you just go through the transformation, use whatever tools you may need, whether it's AI, whether it's working with me or someone like me as a coach or an editor. And that's the other thing. I think people don't think that people assume that you have to, go off on a mountain retreat somewhere and write by yourself. And while there is a part of writing that is done by yourself, you also need community. You need editors. You need beta readers to, test out and make sure that what you're saying is translating the way you want it to translate. So, writing is a community process as well because you're looking to put out a product to a community. So unless you're writing a journal, you 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 need help. So through the process. So you're going to be changed, you're going to be transformed, and you're going to need a community around you to help give birth to your idea baby. And you're going to need to mature and grow that baby up and possibly give that baby siblings.
Yeah, yeah. So I think there's a really powerful point that you're kind of also talking about, which is you said the book doesn't just transform you, it transforms your business.
Yeah.
And so when I went through the Dale Carnegie program, the way that they position it is that they believe that to be a good public speaker, the same values and virtues and skills that are required to be a good public speaker are the same things that are required to be a good leader. So the program is actually designed around a public speaking model.
Mhm.
And what it does is it actually surfaces and leans into all those fears that people have that they face as a leader, but aren't as always as pronounced. But as a public speaker, they become very
It's pronounced.
pronounced. And so the same is true, I think, what you're describing, which is as a business owner, as a business leader, there are things that are holding you back. There are things that you are afraid of. If you go through this book writing experience, you'll get to face and tackle each one of those so that as you overcome them, you'll then be able to overcome them in your business. What are your thoughts on that?
Definitely. I think we're all hardwired to be afraid of rejection because, in our earlier history, being rejected from the tribe meant you're
Hmm.
gone. You're gone.
Yeah.
Do not be put outside of the city walls. You're done.
Yeah. Sent out on an iceberg.
So we have that thing where we want to know that we're safe. We want to know that
Yeah.
that people agree with us, and that that everything's cool, and then our nervous system calms down. But you have to have a mature understanding that some people will love your book, right? Other people would be like, meh, and other people like, I can't stand it. You have to be ready to,
For all
to
of
be
it.
with all of the above. It's not fun, but the only way through is through.
Hmm. Yeah.
And stay focused on who you're here to serve. Speaking of, your book talking about, the passion of Jesus from the garden to the cross, uh, Jesus had to stay focused on the mission. There were
Hmm.
throngs of people who loved him on Palm Sunday.
Yep.
Why were they the same people 4 days later talking about crucify?
Yeah.
So, um, you're gonna have your supporters, you're gonna have your detractors, and you're gonna have people in the middle who are indifferent. And so just focus on that's why Jesus stayed focused on the 12, right? He's focused on that core group of people that wound up changing the world, right? So figure out who are those core people that you're looking to assist with your book, with your mission, with your business, and help focus on transforming them so that they can go ahead and transform their world. Right. So it's
Yeah.
just the transformation in yourself passes on to your readers, passes on to your clients, passes on to other people that they help.
Yeah. So one other thing you mentioned the AI and the having like someone having a voice and a perspective, and I think this is really important for people to understand as AI generated content becomes more and more prominent. The content that's going to get cannibalized or taken over is going to be that generic content. It's going to be that neutral, informational Wikipedia type of content. It's going to be because it's facts and information and it's patterns and so that can be done. But where there's an opportunity for people is to step above that layer, which is the easiest type of content to write, to be honest, and to step above that into a perspective and a point of view and stories, having a vision, having your own stories and your own experiences
Mhm.
that only you have that makes you unique.
Absolutely.
Talk I feel like that's a super important piece, and that's also something where if you do use AI, can help you pull that out of you. But at the same time, it can't replace that part of you, and so you always have that unique facet, and that's, I think, in many ways what people wanna hear. Talk to us about that.
Sure. Um, it's what people call in literary circles, your voice. And sometimes people get caught up on, what's my voice? What's my writer voice? What is, what do I have to say and how do I say it? Um, I don't stress out about voice too much because I'm just like, right, not necessarily write how you would talk because I mean, for me, if I wrote like I talk, you'd think I was schizophrenic. I have different ways of speaking depending on who I'm speaking to. If I'm in, around my family, like right now, my mom's in the Caribbean, hanging out with family. So when I'm in that environment, you hear my Caribbean accent come out. If I'm back in
Mm,
New York, where I grew up, you're gonna hear that Bronx come out.
yeah.
And
Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
but I'm mostly living in Atlanta, so, you're gonna hear me saying y'all and finna, whatever. So, the way that I speak changes it based on,
Yeah,
influenced by my environment. So,
yeah.
speak how you would speak for the environment that you're looking to be in, right? Be yourself. You can't hide yourself. Who you are is going to come out and come oozing through your pores. You cannot hide. Uh, People see, people clock that T, right? And yeah, so yeah, I'm kind of hip on Gen Z terms, and my son who is he's my son is very interesting because some people put him as the tail end of Gen Z, and other groupings put him as the very beginning of Gen Alpha. But whenever I say something, he's like, "Mm-mm, mm-mm. It doesn't sound good when you say it." I'm like, "Baby, get out of here. Get out."
So,
But yeah, so whatever environment you're speaking to, if I am writing something for, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, I'm gonna be clocking the T all day long, right? So you
yeah, yeah.
you want to speak to who you be yourself for who you are looking to serve. It's going to
Yeah,
come out, don't overstress about it, but
yeah,
you need to have your unique perspective. I think one of the
yeah.
things that people love about my writing and my personality online is that they feel like, I'm their homegirl. I'm their, so I've actually taken on the moniker, I'm your business book bestie because I make people feel like I'm talking right to them. Like you're talking to a friend, and your friend is going to give you this honest advice for writing your book. And you're going to hear me. You're going to see the rise and the fall in my voice. You're going to see where I'm like really excited and um,
Mhm.
got my hands going, right? But you're also going to hear when I am like, really serious and straightforward and da, 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 da. So you're going to get all of that dynamic in my videos, and you're going to get all of that dynamic in my writing. It's going to come out. So
Mm,
be yourself and speak to the audience that you're looking to speak to. Use their terminology and just let the chips fall where they fall.
yeah,
Where let the
and
words fall where they fall.
and it's a lot easier to be yourself and be sincere because you're just
Never
being
consistent
you,
everywhere.
and when
Exactly.
you have a mask or facade, it's a lot of energy,
You don't even
and
remember who you said what to, and this is why I
yeah.
don't practice lying because I'm just like, "I don't remember what I told you." So if I tell you the truth everywhere I go, then, I'm gonna be consistent, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what people are looking for mostly today. Oh my god. Consistency and integrity. Be yourself.
Mhm.
Ever you are, be yourself everywhere you go.
Yeah.
God, yes.
Now, you started down this YouTube journey last September. I got serious in January, so you're a little older than I am on YouTube months. What has YouTube taught you about writing books?
What has YouTube taught me about writing books? Well, I will say that I think it's not accurate to say that I started in last September. I've been on YouTube since 2017, my first channel, which I still have. It's my personal channel, and I'm just up and down with that. I'm just like, I don't know what I want.
Yeah.
But my business channel, which is right at writing with Denise Renee. So it's youtube.com/@ writing with Denise Renee. That I think I started in 2021 or 2022, and I started with just posting um, client testimonial videos. And then I started with content very sporadically in 2023. And then I got serious in 2024, being really consistent and being on a really consistent streak
Yeah.
about last September. Um, I think what writing, how YouTube, I don't know if I would say it's taught me something about writing books in particular, but definitely it does help me be consistent. It does help me to think about my audience. It does help me to think about, well, how do I increase, my reach? Who am I looking to reach? How do I, get that message to more
Mhm.
of the types of people that I'm looking for. And
Mhm.
they are the same questions that I do have to ask when it comes to marketing my book.
Mm.
Who is this for? How can I get this in front of more people like them? And what
Yeah.
they kind of tuned into? What's the language that I need to use to speak to them so that they hear what I have to say and decide whether or not I'm for them and my book is for them, or my content's for them. Because for me, it's all a flywheel. It's all
Mhm.
part of the same ecosystem of marketing and branding me
Mhm.
personally and marketing and branding my business. The book feeds the YouTube channel, feeds the client lead acquisition, feeds the business, feeds me, and I feed it all. This flywheel.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you build that, monetization layers in there, and then you can just keep spinning faster and faster.
Yeah,
So,
this keeps reinforming itself.
yeah. Um, Talk to us about frameworks as a starting point for writing a book.
Okay, so I think I may have said earlier in our talk that a lot of times people think that you just and I blame Hollywood for this. Whenever you see a writer, they just sit down, they crack their hands, they pull out a pen in their notebook or what have you, and they
Yeah.
just seem to start writing in this flow. Sex in the
I
City, because the main character Carrie was a writer, so she would always,
mm,
you know, start talking, and it was like part of the pieces that she would, because she wrote this
yeah.
column for the New York paper, whatever paper it was, or magazine it was. So you always see her just sitting there, just thinking, contemplating, and just writing, and it just seems so easy and so effortless. And there are times in writing where it's very easy and effortless, and you're very much in flow. But there are other times where you're just like, what am I writing? So the most successful writers, and especially I would say the most commercially successful writers, people like a what's his name? James Patterson. I think he's sold more books than anybody on the planet. Why is it that every book kind of sounds the same, right? The plot is pretty much the same. Characters are different, settings are different, the scenarios are different, but pretty much, you know,
Mhm.
same thing for summer blockbusters, same thing for sitcoms. You have the same beat. Why? Because there's a structure to follow. There are frameworks. There are in nonfiction, right? I mean, I'm sorry, in fiction writing, they're called tropes. So that's why every billionaire romance book sounds the same. That's why every um, you know,
Yeah. There's a formula. There's something people like. They want more of that, and they just want more versions of it.
so starting with a framework, and I like to call it frameworks for non nonfiction books. Starting with a framework that already works in the marketplace is like GI Joe. Knowing is half the battle, right?
Mm.
Um,
And this is actually something, as I'm getting on into YouTube, like there's YouTube frameworks, YouTube title frameworks, thumbnail frameworks, YouTube idea frameworks. And if you use them, you're going to be more successful than if you don't.
in copywriting, there,
Yep.
what people are calling hooks. These are what um, your headlines. It's basically your headline. right?
Yeah.
It's a thing that grabs that attention and then pulls them all the way through. So writing is not necessarily about coming up with everything 100% original. Your scenario is original, but your framework, you want to build on a
Hmm.
successful framework so that you don't feel like you're starting from scratch. And you know that you are writing something that people want to know about or hear about. So um, it, that's why, you know what, if you write a diet book, you're probably going to be successful at it because people are hungry for that, that type of information. Um, so the most popular frameworks that work very well for nonfiction books are how-to books, methodology books, and success story books, and some kind of hybrid or blend of those. And even when you are writing like your story, because that's another thing that people tell me a lot. I want to write my story. I'm like, okay. And I get a little nervous for some people because I'm like, unless you are a big celebrity or a political figure that people already know, you're like a household name. Those books sell well because people are hyper aware of them and they're
Hmm.
interested in them. So they want, a memoir or something like that from them. But if you're just regular Joe Schmo, unless you are you're, a senior level leader of a publicly traded company or a very popular company, like I think of Sheryl Sandberg with her book Lean In. At the time, she was, I don't know if she's still at Facebook, but she was, an executive at Facebook. So just the fact that even though we didn't know her name, that she was associated with Facebook, and then she writes this book, boom, it's instant credibility and instant fame for her. So for most people, we're not working for a company like Facebook. People don't know us from Adam. So you have to just kind of position your story in a way that they would want to receive it. So, if you have
No
like
matter who wrote it, right? Just the
exactly.
topic itself. Yeah.
So if you have kind of like more of a roller coaster success, kind of, where, there's a lot of highs and lows in your story, but, you came out ultimately successful, then put your book in that type of format. If you have a more like the rags to riches type of story, put it in that framework. Or if it's like maybe, you didn't do anything, it wasn't all those highs and lows, but you came out learning some really interesting principles, then make the principles kind of like the forefront.
Hmm.
Let people know what is the value that they're going to get from
Hmm.
this. And then your story just becomes the delivery method for sharing those principles. So
Hmm.
those are pretty much the six frameworks that work very well. There are other frameworks, but those are the ones that I kind of promote the most because they're easily recognizable and easy to, well, in my opinion, easy to replicate. And so I help people figure out, well, which of these frameworks is the best one for you. And let's plug it into that frameworks, plug your content into that framework so that boom, now you have an outline. Now you know what you're talking about. And now you have a plan forward for your content, and you're not just like coming to your computer like, what do we do? And that's basically the process that I take people through. And we talked about it at the top of the interview, through uh my product there, the 4 steps to start writing your book. I literally walk you through
Mm.
that process of figuring out who's your audience, what's going to be your topic, how does that intersect with your business and your business goals, what is going to be the best topic that's going to resonate with with your audience and for the goals that you have, what's the best framework for your book, and then let's get to outlining it. Let's put a plan together for getting your first draft done. So that's what my 4 steps to start writing your book walks you through. Right,
Yeah.
DeniseRenee.com/4 steps.
And I will emphasize, for those of you who have seen the movie The Shining, he did not follow Denise Renee's advice.
That's Stephen King.
And
Right?
yeah, and the character in it is a writer. Well, the main character is Jack. He's writing a book.
Uh-huh.
So they go off into this mountain. He doesn't follow Denise Renee's advice and he goes crazy. So you have two options. You can follow her advice and be successful, or you can follow the way of Jack in The Shining and go crazy.
I
You know what to
never
do.
read the book because Stephen King, I'm not a horror kind of person, but of course I'm
Yeah.
aware of Stephen King. I did not know that that was the storyline of that movie. That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
So, yeah, he goes crazy and then he tries to murder his family.
It's just I can't with Stephen King. I can't. That's
Yeah, yeah.
not concept. I am not his target audience.
It's a little too intense. So is there anything, I guess when I think about the frameworks and you kind of hint at this, I guess talk to us about what is your goal for writing or publishing this book? Because that can change maybe which framework you use and even which topic you write about. And then even what, like what you're trying to accomplish can just shape so many things. Talk to us a little about that.
Well, I like to start whether through my product, the 4 steps to start writing a book, or whether I'm working with someone one on one. My process is still the same. That is my process. Um, and the first thing is what I ask. What are your goals? What do you want? I'm kind of like a little bit of Pope. Like, what do you want? Right? Because it's like when we know what it is that you want to accomplish, we can then make a plan and work. So I'm always asking, what are your goals for your book? How do they tie into your business goals? Who are you looking to serve with your business and your book? Because very likely, if you're writing a thought leadership book, an authority building book, you're looking to get clients or you're looking to do some high level networking within your industry. You're trying to lead the conversation, and you're probably your end goal is to get beat Sheryl Sandberg out of her position, right? You want to be the next of that Facebook
Yeah.
or what have you. You want to be a CEO, or you already are a CEO and you're looking for that next thing, or you want
Hmm.
to do a startup or something like that. Whatever you want to position yourself,
Yeah.
whatever though that ultimate goal is, I need to know that
Hmm.
so that we can create the right pathway to get there. And yes,
Yeah.
will then inform, well, are we telling your personal story? Are we sharing a methodology?
Hmm.
That informs how we're going to shape the content. So for me, what your goals are first, and who your audience is first, and then we help
Hmm.
you decide the framework, because
Yeah.
putting the cart before the horse is never a good
Yeah.
result.
Yeah, and, when I think about my books, my first book, Path of Freelancer, I wrote that because my goal was to have a published book, and that was my low-hanging fruit because I already as a freelancer, I had the system already developed in my head, I just had to write it out. My second book, The Jump, which is, for small business owners that are in chaos or stuck, it was the goal for that was, to operate as a business card in a sense for my freelancing work, which it's more than paid off in that regard. So that's great. It's kind of a letter to. I had a marketing agency for about 7 years, so it's sort of a letter to me before I started the company. And when I work with clients, I want them to kind of go through that transformational experience to become a flourishing business. And really, the from the garden to the cross, I think in a lot of ways is me trying to solve a problem and think through that problem, which for me was how come Christianity is so often and so much unlike Jesus?
Mm.
How come we are actually part of the problem that Jesus came to save? And so I needed to wrestle through that. And that's probably why it's taken so long, is because it's not something I have an answer to. I have to struggle and wrestle through it to find the answer. So I've had these different goals. And I think when you talked about your book, when you first wrote it, the goal you had, it didn't align, but then your business changed and now the goals aligned. Is that kind of a good summary?
For my particular book. And
Yeah.
I like that you shared that you had different goals for different books. Um, the first book, and it is okay, right? It is totally okay to write that passion project. Um,
Yeah.
or to, like you said, I just wanted to have a published book. And the easiest thing for me to write about was what I had already been through, which that's the easiest thing for a lot of people to.
Yeah.
And that's
Start
totally,
with what you know.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
totally fine. It's just like, boom, you said, hey, I wanted to be a published author. You did it. Done. Chat. But the second book was more so for like lead generation. And like you said,
Yeah.
it accomplished its goal. So,
Yeah.
I don't want anyone thinking that, because I focus on helping people write that book, that thought leadership book, that authority building book, that client attraction book, this is what I focus on helping people do. It doesn't mean that you can't write anything else. I come across people who they started out by creating a planner, or they started out by writing a 90-day affirmation journal or something like that. What's called like a low content book. That's fine. And they did that because they just wanted to have something out there to say that, hey, I'm an author. But now they're like, okay, I really want something that's aligned with my business. That is specifically what it is that I do. So when you want something that's aligned with your business and aligned with your business goals, I am your girl. But yeah,
Mm,
it's definitely, you can write a book for any reason. And I mean, I write fiction, so, and I have to
yeah.
get around to publishing that too. But I write fiction because I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's another great reason to write as well. So yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Well, as we close out here, are there any final words of wisdom or anything you wanted to share about writing that next book that you haven't had a chance to talk about yet?
I think that when it comes to business books, I would really encourage people to don't think about being a one hit wonder. When you're thinking about coming up with your idea, baby, plan for siblings. Plan for siblings. Um, for several reasons. Number one, you kind of have to create things, and the market will tell you what's that breakout thing, or what's that breakout book. The market will tell you that. Because a lot of times when we think, especially like when I'm recording a video, let's say, and I'm like, this video, this is gonna do great. Publish that thing 3 days later, 15 views. I'm like, and then meanwhile, something that I recorded on a whim, 2,000 plus views. I was just like, seriously? So the market will tell you what it likes and what it wants. So I would just say, prepare to write multiple books on the same topic, because it will really help deepen your authority. The process of writing a book, and for the people that are are nervous about, am I enough of an authority to write this book? Write the book. Process, like we talked about earlier, will change you and transform you. The process of writing the book will make you an authority. Okay,
Yeah.
if you didn't, if you weren't already. But
Yeah.
so the more books that you have on a topic will help to deepen your audience and broaden your audience as well. And then also, I would say, if you don't feel like a writer, because that's another thing that holds people back as well. If you don't feel like, then start writing more, right? And a lot of times I think that it's an identity issue. It definitely was an identity issue for me. Um,
Mm.
if you don't feel like an author, well, you have to do the things that authors do. Authors write more often. And being an author is something, because sometimes you could think that authors are people who only write and are only paid from their books.
Mm.
And that's not the case. You can be who you are and an author. You can be
Mhm.
a content creator and an author. You can be a doctor and an author. You can be, a carpenter and an author. So you can add on authorship to any career or business that you are in, and it just elevates what you're doing. So I would say, plan to write more than one book, and write more, and get into writing more for the love and the joy of writing. Keep a journal
Yeah.
if that helps.
I journaled in my Evernote
Mhm.
for about 4 years before I started blogging. And then I started blogging. So I was building the habit, right? And then in 2014, I started blogging publicly.
Mhm.
And I blogged. So I published my first book, Path of the Freelancer, in 2017. So I blogged for 3 years before I published my first book. So that's 7 years of writing before I published that first book. And I think like that's okay. Like you can go through those stages and it'll if it but I see the habit of writing and just being the writer and identity piece. as like you establishing that, and then the other pieces become a lot easier, it seems like.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, writing is a core and critical skill that really runs through everything. It runs through marketing, it runs through
Mhm.
sales. Um, if you're going to be a communicator, if you're someone who's going to be giving keynotes, you got to write your speeches. So it's one of those things where, it's so and having been a former high school English teacher, I know that some of my colleagues have left bad tastes in people's mouths about writing because, we stressed you out because we were trying to teach to some ridiculous standard, and we didn't always teach to the love of writing and the
Mm,
love of creating and the love of seeing your ideas on paper, the love of creating a world and getting lost in it. Yeah, I'm sorry. for
yeah, yeah.
all of my colleagues, right? But like find that love, find that joy of writing, and you will find that an entire world opens up to you.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
Well, Denise Renee, how can people connect with you? What's your website?
So website is writingwithdeniserenee.com. The two places that I'm active on are LinkedIn. So you can find me at linkedin.com/in/, writing with Denise Renee. And then on YouTube at youtube.com/at the little at symbol writing with Denise Renee. That's where you'll find me on the socials. If you go to my website, you'll be able to see the book. You can get the pre-order for the book, Write Your Book, 10 Mindset Hacks to Move You from Here to Finish. And then you'll also be able to access the 4 steps to start writing your book if you'd like that as well.
Denise Renee, Renee with two E's, Renee, and
Renee is a
check
double
out
first
her.
name, by the way. A lot of times people
Yeah.
think that Renee is my last name. It's like, no, it's my whole first name.
Denise Renee. All right, writing with deniserenee.com. This has been another episode of the Share Life podcast. I'm Jason Scott Montoya, and we'll see you on the next one.